To version 2.
Hello, everybody. Here's this Agile thing. My name's Matt Beam. We are now live.
And I'm Mike Markey, and I guess I'm seemingly also live.
And also,
I'm Jeff Singleton. I'm definitely live.
okay. And welcome to the show. It's Saturday. It's the 4th of January, 25. It's cold as hell here in Chicago. Anyway, what's going on this week, gentlemen?
I mean, it is a new year.
It is.
There's people that we've talked to during the course of last year. Do we want to do a retrospective on how we think the show has gone?
Yeah, we should. We're up to 7. This is the show number 78, I believe. Mm-hmm. So we probably have enough material to go through and talk about what worked and what didn't. Should we just do an impromptu retro?
Sure.
Coffee's
Why not?
kicking in for me, so I'm.
We're excellent at the impromptu stuff.
Right.
Impromptu stuffalization of things.
Not a word. So this should be. This is awesome. This is like the barber's kid who had this haircut. We're going to see how 3 Agile coaches do a retro. Who wants to bring up the Miro board? I'm kidding. We don't think we need to do a Miro board, but how does a retro work, Mike?
Well, why don't we bring up this? We could go with the static format. What do you guys think went well over the last year? What worked for us? What should we keep doing?
What should we keep? Yes, exactly.
Inviting more guests.
That went well?
Yeah, I think the variety of other voices, the diversity of hearing other voices instead of just, I love the 3 of us, but let's face it, it's nice to hear from other folks from different perspectives, and I think that's probably more engaging if I were to put myself in the shoes of the average listener, watcher, hearing somebody else banter against our banter.
Yep, I agree.
I do too. I really like when we get a chance to get other points of view in here. And we've always, it's like we get a guest and we have a conversation with them, and then we almost always have a show after where we talk about what we talked about. So we kind of mini retro, as it were, sort of like the Scott Ambler one led to a follow-up conversation. The one with Marcelo led to many ongoing conversations. Things like that. Are you typing things down?
I am typing. We're doing a retrospective.
Okay.
So we're talking about what went well, a variety of guests, more interesting conversations, interesting new topics. I agree. That was one of the things that I've always been concerned about with it. Not concerned, but like, I love us. I think we're interesting, but I don't know, like, what's the value proposition for a person? I don't know. I have multiple thoughts about that. We don't, on the internet, you can either be a huge show or a niche show, right? That's kind of what we've learned. So there's not much room in the middle. And so, and Seth Godin talks about finding your 1,000 true fans, I think. We don't need a ton of people. We just need people who are have the same deep, nerdy interests as we do. Nerdy is maybe the wrong word, but like to be, And so I think that has gone well. I'm trying to think about how to, because if it's a retro, we should go through the format of the retro and just keep. There's multiple rabbit holes I could go down, but I don't know if I want to do that.
Okay, well then the proper thing would be to make that a parking lot item. Then move on, eh?
So interesting. Purpose of the show, parking lot. So in the parking lot, I'm going to put, what's the purpose of the show? Why do we start doing it in the first place? Because I don't know if we ever really, I guess we did talk about that.
We did, but I think it's always valid to revisit because
Yeah.
maybe the purpose has changed or we've learned more. So,
Yeah. What else? Go ahead.
I think one of the things is in talking to other people, hearing other voices, a lot of the people have written their own books. And so I think I was always a big reader, but I think this has kind of filled my pipeline even more with other books to line up. And so I would say it's, at least for me, given me a little bit more exposure to other books and reading, getting my reading eyeballs and thinking.
Yeah. Totally agree. I mean, and that intersects almost completely with the parking lot item. Like, the purpose of the show was to learn stuff. To me, I think, I don't know if you guys disagree, but like, it's fun to talk, but it's like a lot of the value of this is to explore new stuff with people and learn about it and then talk about it in public and give back to the community. So that's something we should double down on in 25, I think.
Read more.
Anything else that went well that we want to make sure we talk about?
Well, we got feedback that the banter was one of the things that people appreciated.
Yeah. Just once or multiple times? How many people said that?
I think we got more than one comment.
Yeah.
Probably a universe of more than two. So
Yeah.
both
On a percentage basis.
both of
it's
our
high.
listener.
Yes. Yeah. I was happy to see that, because if this isn't fun, it's going to be really, really hard to do.
Yeah. All right. Well, we can always come back to you. Did you have anything good you wanted to say beyond that?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm just glad that we did it. Like, and I'm sure we'll revisit this in the didn't go well column, but one of the traps I fall into is perfectionism. Right? That's one of the reasons why I become the bottleneck in the editing process. It's because, like, well, I don't have time to really do this right now, so I'm going to put it off, and then that turns into weeks. And so, I mean, obviously that didn't go super well, but like we didn't just drop it, right? There was always the risk that I would be like, I just don't have time for this. I have to prioritize other stuff. And so the fact that I didn't give up on it. I'll speak for myself, and have pushed through. I think that's a huge success.
Well, I can add on to that. We all experienced traumatic events in our personal lives throughout this year.
Yeah.
Things that were
That's true.
challenges, and we covered for each other and we kept things going. And so I think that demonstrates our commitment to keeping this thing going as well.
Totally agreed. Okay, so what went well is a variety of guests, more interesting conversations, interesting new topics. We didn't stop. We got positive feedback on the banter.
Read new books. Yeah.
Learned a lot. Okay. To Mike's point, we can go on to what didn't go well.
Fair enough. Well, I mean, you breached the subject of production schedule. That is, we did manage to build up quite a backlog, but that, and we addressed it in some ways. We opened up the possibility for you to not just be the bottleneck.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's still related to technical stuff on the back. I would prefer not to have one person be responsible or only able to do all the editing and and we've done that. I mean, Jeff tends to publish and take care of the notes, and I run the recording and getting the original files. And for a while I was editing also, and then Mike was editing, and we went from using Final Cut Pro 10 to Premiere Pro, and now we're trying to do everything in Riverside, and it's like there's pluses and minuses, and so I think there's more to do this year to figure out how to. I mean, I the whole year, it was a little bit embarrassing that we're experts in throughput, and our work in process was always so and our cycle time, like we didn't have good delivery numbers.
Well, I mean, if you build on that a little, we called out that our numbers were not that good and that the situation was getting dire. What did we do about that?
That's a great point.
Right? So it's one thing to point out the problem. It's another thing to do something about the problem. And so the commitment to addressing those issues, to eat the dog food at some on occasions came a little too close.
Yeah. And maybe that's a useful lesson. Like, just because we know about this stuff doesn't mean it's easier for us to practice it. Like, these are just hard things.
Yeah.
Cobbler's children have no shoes.
Yeah. Doctors make the worst patients.
100%. Yep. So didn't go well is delivery efficiency? Is that how I should say it?
It's not even efficiency. I think there's, well, maybe it is. I don't know. Yeah, our throughput was lacking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the keys to having a successful podcast is you have to ship regularly, predictably. It's actually more important than trying to get it right every time, counterintuitively. Which is the thing we teach clients all the time. Like, you're supposed to learn. You're not supposed to get it perfect. You're supposed to iterate constantly.
Right. Well, all right. So this isn't, I don't want to change the subject, but it sort of dovetails with the subject. We went to doing the live stream model. Welcome to the live stream.
Yeah.
Echo, 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 echo. So what we have right now is a live stream with no streamees.
Let me check. Streamee is probably not a word. Yeah, there's nobody looking at it.
Okay. So
Yeah.
So that
Yes.
was an experiment. That was if you think of that as an experiment, what would have been the length of time you would have wanted to give it to ascertain, is it a success or is it not?
Okay, so there's two things there. To directly answer your question, I'll just say a month, just to pick a period of time. I don't have a good justification for that, but my point is we didn't really define it. Like, we didn't have a well-formed hypothesis that included, if we do this, we will see this, and here's the boundaries of it.
that is true. Again with the dog food. So we decided on a course of action. And I don't know, I wouldn't even say we decided on a course of action. I think you figured out how to do it and said, hey, we should do this.
Yeah, exactly.
So in the absence of acceptance criteria and the successfulness of the streaming aspect, how do we feel about how the streaming aspect is going?
I feel like it's going great, which is a ridiculous statement, given the 2 zeros I see in the screen here.
It's not just 1 0, it's 2.
Well,
Two-
because we're
go on.
2 zeros and 1. It's because we're streaming to YouTube and we're streaming to X. And so really, okay, so if we define the hypothesis as can we live stream to platforms, smashing success, totally happening.
We have successfully live streamed.
Yeah, but I mean, I'd describe this as more of a task instead of a product backlog item, right? It's a technical thing you do, but it doesn't necessarily deliver value, right? I guess it's progress, but it's not making what's different now that the tree's falling in the forest and nobody's hearing it, which is great. You found the forest, but like that's not enough.
Right.
So, yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
No.
And that's kind of getting at what's going on in the back of my mind here. Just because you can do it, does it mean you should? I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
it's always fun to experiment and learn things, but the missing element is it resonating with the target market,
Mm-hmm.
the audience? And so if you think of our audience, whatever size they are, as customers, is it resonating with the customer? And what are they saying? But we never
Totally.
ask them, so
Hard to tell.
On that note, though, we did get some feedback this week on the YouTube channel. Somebody responded something along the lines of, I find the conversations valuable. It's a little frustrating that it takes you guys a while to get to the point sometimes, or I don't know where the point is. And so now to that end, when we would not live stream, when we would put out the clean edited version, sometimes an hour conversation would get whittled down to 20 minutes of good content. Or we could get rid of 15 minutes of floundering to find something and then go, hey, wait a minute. Now, we steered away from that a little in response to the banter conversation, going, well, there's some good banter in there, so let's include the banter. And then we started playing around with the concept of outtakes at the end to sort of demonstrate some of the banter. But that makes it a much longer editing process, right? More
Right.
involved. Which, frankly, I enjoyed doing. I liked doing that level of editing on the stuff. It just it doesn't make it go faster.
Yeah.
So, the I guess the implied critique there was, do you even have a plan when you start these things?
Exactly. Yeah, in my mind, it was like, okay, either we can just let it rip and see what happens, and hopefully we're engaging enough to hold the audience, and if at some point we'll talk about stuff that's agile and people will learn also. Or we could approach it as each episode has a purpose and a point and a certain, like, an agenda or a certain top acceptance criteria for that. Like, why would you create this show? Why would somebody listen to it? Right? Those are two different approaches, and we sort of did kind of a mixture of both the past year.
Yeah. Well, so in effect, we had an experiment that said, can you live stream? And we've had enough experiments that show we can carry a conversation whether we have a topic or not.
We can talk for an hour. That's for sure.
We certainly can.
Yeah.
So imagine what we do with a purpose.
100%. Go ahead, Jeff.
back to my point then, yes, we can, talk for an hour off the cuff, but is that of value to the customer base?
Precisely. My thought was probably not. I would rather, my guess is, I would rather focus it on some sort of substantial topic or something that we could learn from and the audience could learn from and be entertaining about it, as opposed to leading with the where none of us are. Like, some of the biggest podcasts in the world are comedians, right? Mm-hmm. But that's because they profess that their job is to make people laugh and to banter, and they can also get into deep, really useful, interesting, substantial topics. But the road in is through the comedy. We don't have the comedy chops, I don't think, but we could. The comedy chops can garnish the agile chops. Suddenly I'm hungry.
I only slightly disagree.
Do you think we should start a comedy podcast, or should we trade off? We're getting into the what should we do differently next time part of the retro. Just to
yes,
should we do differently? Okay, so what went well is the variety of guests, more interesting conversations, new topics. We didn't stop. We got positive feedback. We learned a lot, read a lot of books. What didn't go well is the delivery efficiency wasn't great. The throughput sucked, kind of. Lack of promotion. Nobody's watching the
There was
live
definitely
streams.
that. Like, we still have yet to put an announcement out ahead of time. Hey, everybody, which speaks A, to the plan, and B, to maybe a lack of confidence in the live stream. Like, hey, everybody, come to see our top. It's like, you know what? This is probably my fault. This is a complete amalgam to APLN. Right now, APLN has a meetup next week that we have no speaker for. We have not changed from the default topic screen. It's sitting there just saying the same thing it says month over month over month over month for the next thing. And the numbers are just getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. Meanwhile, we're on the screen with the Less group in New York has 2 topics scheduled in the next week or two or next couple of weeks with speakers and this and hundreds of attendees. And it's right next to ours that shows no announcement or no topic and 11 folks.
Yeah.
And I think it's along the same lines. If you build it, they will come is not necessarily a value proposition.
Sounds good in a movie,
Yeah.
you know, if you're out in the field playing baseball, but I don't know that I ever really even believed that. I think
Yeah, that was really
Costner
far-fetched.
Yes, it was. He was listening to ghosts. I mean, come on.
Yeah. So, and I think you're right, Mike. It was there was a lack of promotion of the live streams or the episodes, the edited episodes that we would. Well, no, that's not true. You're announcing those. No, Jeff's announcing them every week on LinkedIn.
I'm announcing them on LinkedIn. Jeff is echoing them on LinkedIn.
Okay.
But that's only reaching the people we've reached.
On LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. So for we talked because I don't know how many times we talked about it. We should mention on LinkedIn that the live stream, and never happened. We never specified. There was no plan. We didn't specify who was going to do it or what were we going to say or what's the format or like. So failure to plan.
We even went to the point where we've got, Basecamp giving us helpful medium in which to communicate, making to-do lists, keeping track of things. And even that, we're just kind of, the task board in there tends to be, oh, right, done, 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 done.
Yeah.
Not finished one, taking one, finish one, taking one, finish one.
Yes.
We're more retroactively going through the motions.
It's not a lack of tech. We have the technology. We don't have the coordination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
what could we do differently on that?
Well, that's a great
Beyond
question.
saying just do it, because that we already had that one. So
Yeah. Well, what could we do differently? Make a plan.
We could be more planful.
more planful, more big design up front.
No, it's not a matter of big design up front. That's not what planful is.
Go ahead.
I mean, I suppose if one perspective taken to the extreme, that could become big design up front. But the reality is being planful is just a wise idea, and expecting that, we'll have to pivot, we'll have to change, we'll have to do things, but it doesn't obviate the need for or neglect the need for being planful. So I think having some degree of planning is beneficial. It'll at least give us some guideposts and maybe let other people know, because sometimes I think while we feel comfortable doing things off the cuff, Everybody else may not. They like to know up front, hey, what's going on? What's coming in the next week or the next 2 weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
Especially if you're looking for them to show up to watch a live stream or to, I guess maybe not to download an episode, that happens automatically, but to engage, like, yeah, that makes total sense. I wonder, I mean, the obvious thing is, so we've got sort of a weekly cadence, right? We record every Saturday at 10 a.m. Maybe we should do every week, maybe we should establish a cadence of making a light plan for the next week. Actually, retrospecting first. Real lightweight, a couple of minutes, because this isn't complicated, folks, especially if you're just talking about a week. Retrospect and then make the plan for the next week and capture that in Basecamp and turn that into to-dos. That could be a thing. Yeah.
And then it may be helpful to have a check-in at some point, not just wait to the end of the iteration. I would imagine we're working on 1 week sprints.
I think so.
So, and it's almost in a sense we're kind of doing a dual track thing because you're planning the product, and then there's the rollout and delivery of the product. So,
and the planning for the future episodes.
That happens in parallel. Yeah.
Totally. That makes total sense. Okay.
So if the product is the show, then what's our strategy? What's the value we're trying to achieve with the show? How do we articulate that? How do we know what things to prioritize and do first or do next? What's our outcome? How will we know that we're succeeding at this product?
That's a great question.
Did anyone else feel this sense of like a weight just sort of settled on us a little bit?
It's a deep question. It's the question is
this just got real.
Well, you feel this with clients sometimes where you start to, maybe like when you are chartering a team, right? Let's say. Because the question ultimately is, why should this team exist? Why should this company, why should we pay for this team? Which is an inherently uncomfortable question to ask somebody who's currently on the team, right? Because the human nature is, maybe there is no reason. And, typically there is a reason, and we clarify it, and but yeah, it's a heavy question for sure. Why should this show exist? I could take a stab at it. So here's acceptance criteria are, we know more at the end of the year than we did at the beginning of the year about new topics. We have, here, let me write these down. Increased knowledge. That's how my brain works. I'll forget it if I don't. Increased knowledge, dissemination of it. So you get it to the audience.
Well, so that begs a question. Disseminating to the audience. I like the singularity of that sound since it feels so much like there isn't a whole lot of it. Audience.
Yeah, there isn't right now.
So is there should there be a growth goal to this?
Oh, you're saying yeah, probably
expanding that audience. If dissemination of the knowledge is a goal, then the more you disseminate it, the better that goal is achieved, right?
Yes.
So what's our goal around growth? Increasing numbers, increasing listenership.
Right.
How are we measuring that? How do we know we're achieving that? So you could say that we would like to see a sprint over sprint increase in audience.
Sprintly increase.
Now, if we stop thinking of them as an audience and start thinking of them as a customer, then what is it that our customer needs? What is it that our customer wants? What will make the customer want to stay and use the product? What will make them want to stay involved in this?
Knowledge and yucks.
Yucks.
Yucks. It's a bit of an arcane. It laughs.
Okay.
Yeah, entertainment. That's what
I
I
So-
knew what you meant. I knew what you
Yeah.
meant.
Well, I wasn't sure if you were referring to laughter or if you're referring to some arcane acronym of something
Oh.
that's this.
Yes.
Yeses, undecideds, and crap.
Experience.
No.
YUX. No.
Oh, yeah, that's even better.
Thank you. So that's so we talked. So the value is increased knowledge for us, dissemination of knowledge to the audience. We need a goal. So you're talking about measuring so the value of dissemination of knowledge can be measured by audience engagement. Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, yeah, and in a sense, this is a marketing conversation. Like, because
Yes.
the product has to reach an audience. How do we know what's causing it to reach? Like, we could say the live stream has not succeeded at reaching the audience. Right.
Yes, that's true. But it's like saying I haven't been successful in running a marathon either. I mean, I thought about
Right.
it, but I didn't really try.
So in a true retrospective session, just to call out that the live stream hasn't worked is not the point of this. The point of it is to say, do you keep going? Is there something we should do differently?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It's not enough just to point out the flaws. Yes, there's a flaw in this plan. There was no plan.
So
There
it's a
was
little bit misleading to say, hey, you didn't reach the end of the marathon.
Right. There was capability without intent.
Intentionality. Yes.
Right. So if the goal would be if the avenue to improving dissemination of knowledge was to increase attendance at the live stream or interest in the live stream, the only way that we could, what would it take to do that? Right. So possibly knowing what the live stream topic was going to be ahead of time, put it out there into the world. This is what the live stream topic is going to be. Hey, come join us and join the conversation. Right.
Yeah.
Do an outreach thing, not just letting people say, like, halfway through the year, we started saying like and subscribe in the video. I have no idea if anyone ever liked or subscribed, but
I don't know.
They did.
but that should be a goal, right? That you're going to use this and pass this on. Let other people know. Let people know that you took part in this and enjoyed it, or you listened to this and you enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, so let me put my facilitator hat on and just ask the question. Are we getting into the product strategy here? Are we getting too deep, or are we we're talking about what we should do differently in terms of the retro, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So is making a product
Yeah, you're right.
strategy?
This is getting a little deeper into the solutioning, but maybe the outcome from this is to sit down and have a strategy session about this.
Create a product strategy? Is that would that be a way to say it? Okay. Okay. So what we should do differently, what we have so far is retrospect every week, make a plan every week, check in during the week. We didn't clarify how or to do that.
Well, so I imagine there would be a resistance to just saying, hey, let's get together every day and say, is there anything to talk about? It could be during the course of the planning, we could say, do you think we're going to need to check in during the course of the week?
No,
Make
because it's
it more-
unpredictable.
Well, yeah, but you could look at some of the activities and say, hey, yeah, I would appreciate a midweek check-in or something like that. Or we could just anticipate the need and have a midweek check-in.
That might be a good idea.
It's my thought, Jeff. What do you think? You're being quiet.
No, I'm just being respectful and try not to step on anybody. I do agree, having some checkpoint midweek, if that is good, is valuable because it keeps us in sync, and it might help two things. Number one, being more planful of the week ahead, but also identifying if there are some bottlenecks that are delaying some publications and stuff like that. So I think it would be valuable to have something, just kind of a standing check-in Doesn't have to be long, but something quick. And if it turns out we don't need it, then we can always say, give 15 minutes back.
Totally. Morning, evening, noon, middle of the night?
Definitely not the middle of the night. I know some people here are night owls.
Yeah, they are.
I am not. I need my beauty sleep.
I could so if we're thinking Wednesday, probably end of day is better for me. Maybe. It's hard to say.
Well, would it have any correlation to the release schedule? Like we were at a point where we were trying to get stuff out on a Tuesday.
Great question. Yeah.
So
I don't know.
I saw a
Jeff.
smile there from Jeff.
I think he has an opinion.
What was that about?
Well, okay, so if we're going to stick with the Tuesday publication, which I thought was legit, then it would make sense that if we're going to use it to identify any bottlenecks for a publication, that we do it probably before Tuesday.
It's always before Tuesday, though. We're
Today
almost
is
out of time.
before Tuesday.
We don't have time for that. So we record on a Saturday. Hold on. If we record on a Saturday, are we thinking that we would release that same episode on Tuesday, 3 days later? Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. 3 days later?
Well, we have a lot of catch up to do before we get even to that point.
We're getting less and less ketchup in the hopper right now.
It's pronounced catsup. But yes, I agree. But I mean, so let's assume we've cleared out our backlog and we have a whip of 0 and we're on the normal sort. Like, what do we want it to be? I guess is the question I'm asking.
Can the editing be conceivably done in 2 days, 3 days?
Yes, conceivably. Oh, again, another thing we've said to clients: why don't you get all the people together in one room and hash it out in real time? How many wheels are we going to reinvent? We could do so. It takes 7-8 minutes to export the entire video version of the podcast. That would be the main thing that holds us back. But if we had a joint session for half an hour, we could probably hash through all that stuff as opposed to going back and forth for weeks.
Yeah. Well, there is at some point you have to listen to the stream and see if there's any.
Yeah, that's right.
There's still that, but so you can and have posted the rough draft of or the first draft of things
Immediately.
So to go back and relive what we just did again, a glitch in the matrix occurs and we have to earmark all the things that we wish hadn't happened. And then it's a question of doing that rough cut to get the stuff cleaned out. We can certainly do that. I know that generally right after this, we have lives
business
to get to.
Yeah. Okay, and I wonder if we're getting a little bit into the, like, maybe this is what we should be doing every week with the retrospect and the plan, and we can iterate on.
Yeah.
But
you identified having a pregame beforehand might be helpful, so we don't just show up and just go,
Who are
at
you?
least we can, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe a postgame is necessary.
Oh, so we could get the first version of it reviewed in the same time box, couple hours. That would be a lot on Saturday morning.
That would be a lot on Saturday morning at this time. It would
Yeah.
probably have to shift time in order to pull that off.
Yeah.
So maybe, but a post game where we talk about what we're going to do, or maybe set some time frame around when can we expect this? We should listen to this. Who's going to do it?
Yeah.
I did not play with the Riverside as an editor yet. And the main reason I haven't is I was afraid that I would break the one and only good copy. I don't know if that's a danger.
Honestly, I'm not sure either
Okay.
because of the details of how Riverside is licensed and logged into and all that stuff.
Well, no, but I just meant if I logged in, I was able to get into the editor and I was able to see, I could click a button and say, edit this. But I was afraid, what does that mean? Like,
Yes.
if I make any change, is that it? The original is gone and destroyed, or is this a destructive process as it goes? Or is it like in Premiere, the original is still there, it's just mapping into the original?
So let's talk about that. We're technically reached the end of our time box. I just want to mention real quick, we have a listener on, I'm not sure where he is. It must be YouTube. Shashank, which I think is the same Shashank I know from another context I'll be talking about this year at some point. He just put a thing in the chat. He says, as a customer, I would like to have some takeaways from the podcast to use them in real life. There's feedback from the actual real audience. Thank you,
It's even
Shashank.
in the form of a user story.
It's
Sorry.
he's one of us. He's a practitioner. Thank you. It's extremely helpful.
And that actually, thank you, Shashank, because
Yep.
that actually gets to one other thing that I was hoping that we could do differently, and that is get more feedback from whatever audience that we have. That's always my driving force anyway, is what does the customer want?
Yep.
And so if we can get that and be more responsive to that, whether it comes through questions, comments, or live comments, I think that would be a beneficial thing.
I totally agree. So, unless you guys have any final parting thoughts before we close it.
Let's do better, and let's do better this year.
Let's do better this year. Jeff, anything?
We will do better. We've
Yeah.
learned a lot. So
Awesome. All right. Well, obviously this has been an Agile thing, and I have been Matt Beam.
I've been Mike Markey.
I'm still Jeff Singleton.
And we will see you next week, 10 o'clock Central. Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.